Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for coming and watching my 5th video now. It seems like a lot of videos, but it isn't really. I did say that I was going to be doing a haul as my next video, but I've decided to do a little filler video for you guys because my stuff hasn't arrived yet, so I didn't want to wait that long and have you guys wait weeks to see that video, so I thought I'd do a little one in between. In today's video, I'm going to be elaborating on my EPQ, which in England is an extended project qualification, which is basically half an A-level that sometimes you can do. I'm not sure, but in my school you had to do it if you did 3 A-levels, and I've actually just finished it, and I'm going to be talking about that basically, but it's not just necessary to EPQ students, it's very necessary to people who like motorsport as well, because my project was about motorsport. Not just women, men as well. So it's quite topical and very interesting even if you're not doing an EPQ. But hopefully there will be some people doing EPQs that will watch this and it will be helpful. So I'm going to let you get into the video.
Absolute legendary. I don't know. Oh, that's me.
So first of all, I'm going to start off with my title. So in an EPQ, you have to write a 5,000 word dissertation, or you can do an artifact, but I chose to do the 5,000 word dissertation. So you still have to make a question which you elaborate on in the dissertation. So my final question was, should there be a development of diversity between genders in motorsport in the near future? I'd say it was quite hard to find a question where the answer wasn't just yes. So like, should there be more women in motorsport? Yes. I had to word the question well enough so that I could talk about lots of different things in the question. And obviously I found this a very interesting topic purely because I want to work in that industry, and I'm a woman, so it makes sense. So the question that I chose really lent itself to me elaborating on the diversity in motorsport today, how it's sustainable for the future. I am by no means a feminist. I'm not saying that women should dominate Formula 1. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, the whole way through my essay, I was always rounding off each point rather than saying there should be an increased female involvement, there should be increased male involvement as well. And also the fact that motorsport should be seen as a well thought of profession, instead of just like, I'm going to work in motorsport, people look at you and they're like, okay. But as a woman, it's kind of like, oh, you want to work in motorsport, it's cool. But as a man, it's really difficult to get into the industry, because if you want to say I want to be a mechanic, it's like, oh, okay. So I think it should be more of a well thought of profession. The one thing I would say when writing my EPQ is that planning is essential. If I hadn't have planned what I was going to write, I wouldn't have been able to write it in the time limit I had. One thing that I did was I planned each section what I was going to talk about in each section, and I planned a word count for each section, which I didn't actually follow that well, but it was helpful because it meant that I knew how much I need to put into things, but it did change quite a lot towards the end, because when I was going through I added things in all different places. So yeah, but planning is essential if you want to do well in your EPQ. And then moving on to the presentation that you have to do after your dissertation. A lot of people in my class, and including my supervisor, didn't actually know what motorsport was. Well, I assumed they didn't know, or they weren't that aware of what motorsport is. So I had to elaborate on that. So it was probably a bit patronising, but I had a whole slide in my presentation where I said, first of all, what is Formula 1? A fancy car driving... So it's a little bit more than just a fancy car driving around a track. It's actually a huge industry, and it does account for the successfulness of the British economy. British, why can't I say British? British economy. It's actually currently valued at 6.3 to 8.2 billion pounds. And the industry's revenue reached 11.2 £1.1 billion, which actually overtook the FIFA World Cup's revenue in 2019. So it's a pretty big deal. So then, moving on to research. So in an EPQ, you have to research sources to back up your points. So the points I was making, I always had to reference back to something that I'd found in my research, which was really interesting actually. And a lot of my research came from the official Formula One website because it's very trustworthy, seeing as it's the Formula One website. And also they publish a lot of sort of up-to-date articles and news and that sort of stuff, which is actually really helpful, and you can use it in your EPQ and it will look really good because you've got it from an actual genuine source. I'll link a few articles down in the description so that you can go and read them in your spare time, because I think they're such a good read. Even if you're not doing EPQ and you are interested in motorsport, they're such a good read. Same goes for all the other articles that I'm going to talk about. I will link a lot of them in the description so that you can go and look at them. The most interesting thing I found when doing my EPQ was the case studies that I used. Case studies. Oh, my nan's back. I'm back. A modern day example was Formula 3 driver Sophia Floresh, who was involved in an accident and was propelled into a metal fence at 171 miles per hour. And she actually had to undergo an 11-hour operation to save her from paralysis. So she's actually such an inspiration for even people that don't want to be drivers. She's still an inspiration. Like, to me, she's still an inspiration. Now, I found this really interesting. In an interview with the Telegraph, she said, this is her words, she said, the issue is that many years ago F1 was a man's world, and to an extent it still is. Which is it really backed up a lot of my statements. But that's not the point. It is not a bad thing that F1 is a man's world. It's not a bad thing at all. It does act as a barrier for some women getting into it because it might de-incentivise us. Why am I saying us? I'm not de-incentivized. It may just push girls away from working in the industry rather than wanting to work in the industry because it's such a male-dominated sport. But for me, it doesn't matter as much, purely because I've grown up with my dad and I've been around a lot of men and things in my life that doesn't affect me. And I've also been around motorsport, so I want to work in motorsport. Susie Wolff is another inspiration. Whoa. She is a British. Why can't I say British? She's actually test driven for Williams quite a few times. In an interview with her, she said, "I do believe a woman can compete at that level. I showed that in testing. I don't think that it will happen very soon, but I will definitely make sure I will help the next generation." So she believed that the barrier stopping young women becoming racing drivers is the lack of karting and the lack of role models, which is true, and also to an extent of female wanting to work in the industry, as in in the team. There's still a lack of role models, but there's not really, because my role model is Claire Williams. But obviously younger people aren't going to have a Claire Williams to look up to unless they look into history. So that's one thing that I really want to do. I want to become a role model for younger people. I want them to look up to me and go, look, I want to be her. Not necessarily because I'm working in Formula One. I might be working in any type of motorsport, whether it's the Porsche Super Cup or it's the Porsche GB Cup or it's, I don't know, touring cars, all those sorts of things, like Formula E, for example. I don't want to work in Formula One, I want to work in motorsport around the thing that I love. So Susie Wolff was an inspiration for both people that wanted to be drivers and work in the team, but Jamie Chadwick is another example of an inspiration to people who want to be drivers because she is a Formula 3. She did race in W Series as well. She's currently a development driver for Williams, which she became one in 2019. And I actually attended a webinar, I think it was in September, with Jamie, and it was really interesting because she said three things. I'm going to tell you these three things. I wrote them down because I'm not going to remember them. But she said she spoke with Nikki Shields, who's a TV broadcaster for the BBC and CNN, And Jamie said that there's no fixed way of getting into motorsport. There's no like dot to dot, you go that way. You can go any way. You can get into motorsport really like there's so many different paths that you can get into motorsport by. And there has been a genuine change in female development, which I agree with. Like, there's a huge community that has been created of all these females that want to work in motorsport, which is amazing, and I'm actually so happy to be a part of it. And it isn't the easiest profession, which we all know, but the opportunities for girls has never been better, which is amazing to hear, because obviously as a girl, I know I can see all the opportunities that are available, and it's so good that there are so many. Then lastly, I used Hannah Schmitz. I can't say her last name, but she's an inspiration for someone who wants to work in the team. She is a senior strategy engineer at Red Bull Racing. During a race in 2019, she made the decision for Max to make a third pit stop during the race, which meant that overall he actually won the race, which was amazing for Red Bull. And she actually collected the Constructors' Trophy on the podium that day because of her like amazing decision making and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's I'll put a picture of her here, but oh my god, when I saw that, and she also did an interview I think after that race, it sort of spread the word of women in motorsport more. It showed you that you actually can get there, and like now I look at it and I'm like, I want to be on the podium, even though I'm not going to be an engineer. I'm not clever enough to be an engineer, but I would love to be on the pit wall with headphones. That is my dream. Finally, I have to add in this one, Claire Williams. I have said her before. She is my #1 role model. #1. I'm not going to say much on her because I'll probably do like a separate video to do with her because there's so much to say. Finally, a really interesting fact that I found out whilst researching, well, I didn't actually find out, my dad found out. I'm going to read it out to you because it's so interesting. So, Carlos Sainz, right? No, wait, start from the beginning. Lateral forces of drivers often reach around 8 Gs. So, like, if they experience sort of like deceleration, it's normally, it's normally 8 Gs. So, Carlos Sainz has a mass of 70 kilograms, which is insane because that's nearly as heavy as me. And he crashed, and he experienced a crash that was recorded at 48 Gs, which means that during the short space of that crash, time of that crash, his body would have weighed over 3 tons. How insane is that? That's one thing that I was evaluating in my EPQ, is that F1 drivers are athletes, and I was sort of like evaluating whether a woman could actually have the physicality to undergo the same as what a male would be, which they can, but there are lots of different body functions that are different in a male and a female that might make it more difficult, but it doesn't mean it's not possible, because you can train hard and a woman would probably be the same as a man, but you know. But I thought that was insane, and also Carlos raced the next day after that. How insane is that? And finally, you'll be happy to know, the evaluation. I said there aren't just gender barriers to women getting into the industry. There are financial barriers, there are like career barriers. There are so many barriers that stop not just a woman, a man getting into the industry. A gender disequilibrium, that's a very good word. It's not just about gender, there's so many other factors that are involved in getting into motorsport. So overall, yes, it should be more accessible to everyone, but that's not possible sometimes, because there are already thousands of young drivers and engineers that don't make it to Formula 1, and to make it more accessible would be even worse, because there'd be so many more people not making it, which is not a great idea. So I think it should be more accessible, but just not to the point where it's totally accessible. And finally, some statistics for you. There is a 10 to 12% performance gap between elite females and males, which is quite a lot if you think about it. 21% of women work in the engineering sector in 2019, which isn't that many women. But it is quite a lot, but I would imagine not like not even half of the 21% work in motorsport, they just work in engineering. And 46% of girls aged 11 to 14 would consider a role in engineering, which is quite a big number, but we want it to be more. We want it to be more because we want, like, yeah, I want to increase women in the team. I wasn't really focusing on women as drivers because that's already being focused on by the FIA, and they have so many like different schemes to support that, and they do as well for engineering and like team sort of stuff. Which, my point about Girls on Track, if you haven't already and you're a girl and you want to work in motorsport, join the Girls on Track community on Facebook. I don't know if I can link them below, I will try. And that is all I have to say. So I hope that was really interesting for you. I hope it wasn't too boring because, yeah, that'd be sad if it was. But I wanted to make a video on my EPQ because I know when I was doing it I would have really liked to watch someone and have help. But also it's about motorsport and my channel is about motorsport, so I hope it was quite insightful for all you motorsport fans, and if it wasn't, go and read the articles anyway that I've put down below because they are interesting. If you don't like the articles, then I don't think you're a proper fan, just saying. But yeah, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for my next videos. I'm not sure what they're going to be, honestly. It might be the haul, it might not, we'll see. But I have a massive notes list of videos that I'm going to make for you guys, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can see when I posted. Wait, no, that's the notifications. Do it all so that you can see that I've posted rather than having to go on Instagram and see that I've put it on my YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate every single one of you that subscribes to my channel. I hope you have a really good day, and I will see you soon.
I'm not angry anymore.